welcome back to the LP Gallery tutorial. Today is part 2, creating abstract patterns using artistic effects. Now before we get into that, we want to talk about something that maybe a lot of PowerPoint users aren't familiar with. We have 23 artistic effects, but a lot of people don't realize that they actually fall in one of two categories. Now category 1 is this, that the artistic effect will scale to the size of the picture. So if you have a small picture and you apply, let's say, marker, for example, the marker pattern is very tiny on that picture. If you have a picture that's really large and you apply marker, the marker pattern is very visible in that picture. The other category is where size doesn't matter. For example, film grain. It doesn't matter how big or small the picture is, film grain is always the same size. So we're going to show you that so you can see the difference, because it does kind of affect how these artistic effects are applied to pictures. Okay, so let's go get a picture. I'm going to take this one. This one's a very large picture. It's 4,000 by 3,000 pixels, very large. I'm going to bring it into PowerPoint, and PowerPoint just squishes it down to fit into the slide. Now 4,000 by 3,000 pixels is a very, very large picture. It's a big file size too. We certainly don't need anything that big, so we're going to have PowerPoint compress it down. Now before you do that, I'm going to duplicate this and make the smaller picture. Okay, so now we're going to have PowerPoint compress this down, get rid of all those millions of pixels that aren't necessary, because that'll just slow down the artistic effects. So we're going to go to compress, and my document resolution is set to the default of 220 pixels per inch. Now you can set that in your options, so you might have to check your options to see what yours is. Mine is set at 220 pixels, so that's document resolution. I'm going to say OK, and that's set. So PowerPoint has got rid of those millions and millions of extra pixels that aren't necessary for display on the slide. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to go to compress, and again, so it's 220 pixels. That's my document resolution. Say OK, and now they're set. Now this is important because if the two pictures have different resolutions set in them, the effect will not be the same. So we're having the pictures at the same resolution, so the effect is the same, so you can really see the difference. Okay, so I'm going to click on the small one. I'm going to go to Artistic Effect, and I'll do Marker. Now, what marker is, it's a pattern. So it's like taking a felt marker and dabbing it on a piece of paper and drawing a picture that way with little dabs of the felt marker. Here you can't really tell what it's doing because the dabs are very small. They're scaled small to the picture. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to go to Artistic Effects, and I'll do the same thing. Now, when I do that, you can definitely see the large dab pattern there. They're kind of like a little star. So you can see them very clearly here. Now, if I take this and put it here and stretch it out, and move it here, if we take a look, we'll see they're exactly the same. The same dab pattern, same size, and the same number. So PowerPoint has just scaled the marker to the smaller picture and scaled it to the bigger picture. Okay, now let's try one that doesn't scale. One that doesn't scale is film grain. So let me go to Artistic Effects. Let's go to film grain. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drag the grain size over so it's really big, so it's a really heavy grain. You can see that there. Now I'm going to do that here, Artistic Effect, film grain, and I'm going to drag the grain size over again. Okay, so we got heavy grain in both pictures. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to just lay it on top. And if we take a look here at the grass, you see it's exactly the same. As a matter of fact, if I put it on top, you can't even tell where it ends. So the grain pattern in both the small picture and the large picture is exactly the same. Artistic effects that scale are the ones that I show you right here, and the other ones don't scale. So again, that's kind of important. So you may have applied an artistic effect on a big picture and a small picture at some point and wondered why they're not exactly the same. Well, it could be that you've chosen one of the ones that scale. So we want to be aware of that. Now the last thing I'm going to talk about is this. What if you want a big pattern on a small picture? So these 6, as you know, are scalable. So for example, let's say we use the Mosaic Bubble pattern. So we know that it's going to be bigger here and smaller here. But what if I want the big bubble pattern on the small picture? How do I do that? Okay, so what I'm going to do is apply again the bubble pattern so you can see the difference. Okay, so we have it there, and it's very small. We're going to go here again, and it's very big. So what if I want this big pattern, but I want it applied to the small picture? Well, this is how you do it. It's a workaround solution, and it works quite well. Okay, I'm going to take this, and I'll just put it up here. And what I'm going to do is, just for this, I'll remove the bubble pattern. So we got this set back to the beginning. So how do we make a big bubble pattern here? Well, all you have to do is just duplicate the picture like this. Overlap them. The more pictures you add, the bigger the bubble pattern will be. So something like that is pretty good. Now we just select all that, we copy it, and we paste it as a picture. It has to be a picture. Okay, so here's one big large picture. Now as far as PowerPoint is concerned, that's a large picture. You don't have to assume that a large picture has to be the size of your slide with both the height and width. As long as it's going in one direction, whether it's vertical or horizontal, like you see here, it's a big picture. So now we go here and we apply the Mosaic Bubbles, and there it is. So now you got your big Mosaic Bubble pattern on this picture. Okay, so the next thing to do, of course, is you probably only want the one picture. So you would just right click and you would crop. Crop to the one picture, and you have your one picture. This is still going to be remembered by PowerPoint as multiple images. So you see that? What you're going to want to do is copy and paste that again. So it's a separate image. Okay, so now it's just an image by itself. So if we crop, you see there's nothing there. And this one you don't need. Okay, so that's one way to do it. So the number of pictures you use here will determine the size of that special effect. So if I were to get rid of one and copy and paste as a picture. So here we have 3. We had 4 before. Let's go back here. Let's do the Mosaic Bubbles, and you can see the pattern is smaller. So the number of pictures you have here going across will dictate how big that pattern is. So now you know how to create a big pattern from one of these scalable ones on a small image. Okay, I think that's about it for that. Now let's get going and start creating our abstract patterns. Now I'm creating most of these abstract patterns to put into text, but sometimes it's useful to put them into text shapes rather than just the text themselves. So here we have text, and the problem with this is that once you put your artistic effect into it, you no longer have access to the picture tools. But if you turn this into a text shape and you put your artistic effect, you will have access to the picture tools to further modify the effect. So this one I will leave as text, and this one I'm going to convert it to a text shape. Now all I have to do for that is just grab a rectangle, make sure it's bigger than the text, send it to the back, select both of them, go to Format, go to Merge Shape, and go to Intersect. Okay, so now we have a text shape. So it looks like text, but you cannot edit this as text. It's just a text shape. So this will allow us to go one more step that we can't do with the text. Let's take a look at what we have here. So here we have the 5 basic objects that you'd be working with in PowerPoint. You have a plain colored object, a gradient object, texture, pattern, and then you have a picture. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on this blue rectangle first. I'm going to show you a lot of the different combinations we use to create these abstract patterns. And then when it comes to these, I'm going to just select all of them, paste them as a picture. They will look the same, and then we'll apply the same effects to these. So they're going to be slightly different because they have a different pattern on them. But once you get the idea of how we do this, it'll save us time if we just repeat the same steps rather than doing each one individually. Now obviously you'd have better control if you did each one separately. There's 23 artistic effects, and really we're only going to be using maybe 9 or 10 of them. They're the best ones. So we're going to be repeating those steps over and over again. So let's get started. Now one of the problems with using a solid color is that not too many artistic effects will work on a solid color. So it's not like a picture. A picture already has a pattern, so all your artistic effects will work fine on a picture. But a solid color is different. The first thing we have to do is use artistic effects that'll put a pattern on the solid color, and then all the other artistic effects can work with it. What I'm going to do is make 4 of these. I'm going to make 4 of these rectangles. I'll make them each different color, and we'll apply a different pattern to them so you can see how they modify as we work. So I'm going to take this one, and remember, we're working with pictures. That means you have to take the vectors and convert them into pictures. So I'm going to just take that, copy it, paste it. There's my smart tag. Click on picture. I'll know that I did it right because the picture goes to the middle of the screen. Then I'm going to put that here. Now I'm going to make 4 different colors just so you can see how that all interplays. So now I'm going to align them. So I'm going to line the tops, and then I'm going to distribute them so they're even. Okay, now we're going to put a different pattern in each one of those. So I'm going to click there, go to my artistic effects, and on that one, I'll put cement pattern. On this one, I'll put a nice sponge pattern. This one, I'll use film grain. Film grain is very good for roughing up a picture. So I'm going to take that, but I want the grain size to go all the way over, so it's a heavy grain size. Now, in my PowerPoints, for some reason, there seems to be a pause or delay. So sometimes I have to deselect, click, and do it again. So you might see me do that a lot. Okay, now on this one here, I'm going to put this one here, line drawing. Now I don't want the speckled here. I want the diagonal lines. So I'm going to take the pencil size and just drag it all the way over. That's what I want. Okay, now to save time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all these. I'm going to copy them and paste them as a picture so we can do the effect on each one simultaneously. So I'm going to copy that and paste as picture. And now we can apply the effect all at once. So here we have 4 different patterns, and I want to modify them. So one of the best artistic effects to modify everything in one shot will be your glow edges. So that's this one right here. And we get that. So you can see how glow edges affects each pattern differently. So we can go smoother or rougher. So I'm going to drag the slider bar one way or the other to see the effect. Let's take this to smooth. Let's take it all the way to the other end. And that's way too much. That's not going to help us. So we grab the slider bar and we drag it to the other end. It's probably a little too rough. And we want to find something happy in the middle. So maybe something like that looks pretty good. Maybe we'll just move it up a bit. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. Now you might say that looks a little too dark. That's not a problem because we can go to our format, we can go to our colors, we can modify our colors, make it a little bright, and then we can go back to corrections and we can lighten it up. So you don't have to worry about making things too dark because you always have access to the brightness and contrast here, the corrections, and you can always lighten it up. So let's see, what do I have? What do I like? So you just run your mouse and find something you like. So maybe I like that. Out of the 4 of these, I think this is the most interesting pattern. So again, they're not always going to be perfect, and some artistic effects combine with other artistic effects differently. So you have to choose the one you like the best. So here, because I'm doing 4 in one shot, so what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to copy, paste as a separate object. Now, because these are one object, not individuals like you're going to be doing, I have to crop this. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to crop right there. And I'm going to copy that and put it into the text. I'm going to copy, click on my text. Remember, this is text. So I have to go to text options, the fill, and paste it in there. And we get that. Now I'm going to go to my shape. Remember, this is a shape. So we have to go to the shape options, go to the fill, and do the same thing. And we get that. Now again, the difference is I have access to the picture tools with the shape. I don't with the text. So if I click on my text, no access to it. Here, no problem. So I can go back to my format. I can go back to my color. I can modify the color. I can go back to my corrections, make it lighter, darker. So I still have access to it. So that's the difference between a text shape and actual text. Okay, so I like that. Maybe I'll leave that. Maybe I might even sharpen it. So maybe I'll go back and add a little sharpening to it, and that looks pretty good. Okay, now again, normally I would make these rectangles the same size as my text so they don't have to stretch too much. I can always make the stretch bigger if I need to, but if you stretch too much, then they get soft and fuzzy and pixelated. So it's better if the rectangles you're working with as your fills are the same size as your text or a little bigger. Okay, let's get rid of that one. Okay, so now I'm going to take this one and I'm going to copy it, paste it as a picture. And this time I want to obliterate all these patterns. So to do that, I'm going to go to my artistic effects. I'm going to use my line drawing. So I'm going to click on that one, line drawing, and I'm going to take the pencil size right across. I want those nice, strong diagonal lines. So I'm going to drag that right across, get those strong diagonal lines like that. And I got the transparency at 25%, which is fine, so you can still see what's below it. Okay, and I might go and change the color a bit. So I might go to my format, color, modify the colors a bit, and check out the brightness and contrast. Maybe you want to change that a bit. Something maybe along that line. It looks pretty good. Okay, now each one of these is a nice pattern in itself. They would look great in these text or text objects. They'd be great, but I have something else in mind. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste. Okay, now with this one, I'm going to go back to my glow edges again. So I'm going to go back and we get that. So you can see that's pretty striking. So again, I can play with my options here. Make it smoother or a little bit rougher. I think I kind of like that. So again, a nice abstract pattern based on this one here. And the problem I find with the glow edges is that to me it's too mechanical. To me it looks like you applied a filter to it. Many picture programs have something like a glow edge that does that kind of work. So I want this to be a little more painterly. So I'm looking for more painterly effects more than mechanical effects. So I'm going to copy that, paste it as a picture. Bring that back down here. And what I'm going to do with that one is apply one of the painterly effects. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to use, I could use paintbrush. Look at that. Isn't that great? And again, I could drag my slider bar one way or the other to smooth it or make it rough. So again, I'm looking more for painterly effects. Now I could also use sponge. Sponge works pretty good with that one. Sponge is a little more blockier, but it's another really great effect. So you can see what I have here compared to this. So this I think is more artistic. This I think is more mechanical. So I would use one of these as opposed to those. Now what I think I'm going to do is put back my paintbrush because I like that one a lot. Looks really good. Okay, so let me just copy and paste that. Again, I'm going to have to do cropping to show you what it looks like. So which one looks really good? Maybe I'll take this one here. So I'm going to crop. Take that, copy it, click in there. And again, that's a text. Have to go to text options, paste it. Looks really, really super good. Go here. That's a shape. Go to the fill and paste it in there. Looks really good. Now remember that you can rotate these. So I can copy that, paste it. Now it goes a different direction. And I can also do this. I can do some cropping here. So if I really want a big stretch, I can right click, crop it here, copy that, and I'll put it here. And got to go to our shape, options, clipboard, and we get a bigger stretch. So a much wider stretch here compared to that. And we can also rotate it. I can copy that, click here, text options, paste it, and we get a stretch down. So again, we get a very different effect. But in order for these to work, this has to be fairly big. You can see it's a little soft here. So we don't want that really soft because it looks like it's stretched too much. So you got to make sure your rectangles are big enough. So if you're cropping them, they will stretch, but you'll still get the clarity. So I can always try to add a little sharpness to this. It's a little bit sharper. I can try copying and pasting it in there again, see if that helps. And it's a little better. So again, you can rotate these, paste them in different ways. So you can crop them, have them going in different ways so they stretch. And that extends that one little abstract pattern into many abstract patterns. Okay, let's get rid of that and let's continue. Okay, so let's take this one here, the glow edges there. Let's copy that. Let's paste that as a picture. Okay, now what I want to do is get rid of this pattern. Okay, so another good effect to get rid of patterns is to use the glass effect. So I'm going to use glass, and glass gives me that. Now it looks pretty good. Although I'm not a big fan of this texture type pattern, it does look good in the text. But I have something else in mind. So I think I might want to lighten that a bit. Go to my corrections here, maybe make it a little bit lighter. It looks pretty good. So I'm going to copy that and paste that. Okay, now I don't need this one. I don't want that one. Get rid of it. It's an intermediary step, so get rid of it. Now, there's a lot I can do with this, but I want my painterly effects. So what I'm going to do is go to my paintbrush, and we get that. So that's quite a bit different than that one. So very, very interesting. It looks like you're looking at a NASA picture of some distant galaxy. Pretty quite nice. And again, we can drag the brush size anywhere we like. You can make it a little more rougher, a little more smoother, and that looks pretty good. And again, we can go back to our format, color. We can modify the colors a bit, and we can go back, corrections, and make it lighter, darker, whatever you like. And that looks pretty good. And each one of these would be a great pattern. So again, maybe I should show you. Let's copy and paste as picture. Now, which one should I take? Maybe I'll take this pink one. So I'm going to right click, crop, drag to that one, copy that. Again, it's a text. Put it in there. And again, you can always tile it if you want. Okay, and we'll do the same here. It's a shape. Fill. There we go. And again, now because this is a text object, I still have access to my colors. I can modify, and I can make it lighter or darker. And maybe I'll even make it a little sharper. And there you go. Okay, again, beautiful patterns, incredible patterns. Those of you who work in Photoshop, how long would it take you to do this in Photoshop? Now, again, I'm creating things that I want people to look at and go, how did they do that? I don't want them thinking, oh, he just applied a filter to it. I want it to look like it was a lot of work. And how much work has it been so far? Very little work. So you might be surprised at what PowerPoint can actually do artistic-wise. Okay, let me get rid of that one. Okay, so let me take that. Let me copy, paste as picture. Put it here. Just move this. Okay, let me try something a little different. Let me go here, artistic effect. Let me try this one. This one I don't use that much, but let's try a light screen on it. So light screen gives you that kind of a pattern. Now that's, to me, is a mechanical thing. It looks too much like you put a filter on something. But what the light screen can do is obviously change the grid size. You can increase the grid size, make it bigger or smaller. But if you go to number 3, watch what happens. So I'm going to click on number 3, and this is what I get. It kind of flattens the pattern, and it's only number 3 that does that. So I like this. I would have no problem using something like this into one of these. That looks pretty good. Normally I wouldn't use line screen because it's too mechanical to me, but when you take the number 3, and depending on the effect that has preceded it, you can get some pretty nice ones. So something like that looks pretty good. But I really have something else in mind for that one. So I'm going to copy that, I'm going to paste it. And with this one, I'm going to go back and put my good old paintbrush on it, and we get that. Now that is a great effect. It looks like big dabs of paint. I love that. So again, I'm going more for the painterly effects. You may want to go more for the mechanical effects. And as we move that around, you see you get beautiful painterly effects. So I really like that. So that would be very nice in one of those. So nothing you can do with the line screen. If we can copy it, paste it. We can actually apply this one here, the paint strokes, which is a very dark one. And I like that. That looks really good. Now you might say that's way too dark. Well, we can always take the transparency down. So we don't often play with the transparency, but that's an important thing to consider because it allows you to blend the two effects. And we get something that kind of looks like that. So it adds a little bit of darkness. I think it looks kind of neat. It would probably look really good in here. Okay, let's get rid of that one. And let's just move these up a bit. Okay, I'm going to move that one up here. And this one here, I think I'll just get rid of. It's just a variation, so I'll just get rid of that. Okay, how about we take this bottom one, copy it, paste it as a picture. Now here's a nice artistic effect that probably a lot of people don't use, but it'll work really good where you have heavy patterns. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to use one called Cutout. And what it does, it kind of gives it like a poster look. So it reduces the colors into bigger shapes. So I'm going to click on that, and we get something that looks like that. That looks fantastic. So if you look at your options, you have the number of shades. So I'm going to drag it all the way to the right so we get more shades, and we get a nice pattern that looks like that. That looks really good. That doesn't look as mechanical as, let's say, glow edges. It looks far more painterly. Again, I'm going for more painterly effects. So that looks pretty good. Now we could do the same thing with either one of these. So if I were to take this one and apply Cutout to that, you'll see what that does. It gives you a very large pattern. And they look more natural. They look more drawn or painted than they do created by a filter. So looks pretty good. You can use Cutout wherever you have a nice big pattern on something. Okay, I'm going to just get rid of that. So let me try one of these. So again, I have to copy and paste. And see, which one should I use? I think I'll go for the last one here. So I'm going to right click, crop. Take that, copy it. Click on that, copy it. Go to my text, text options. Paste it in there. Looks really good. Do the same thing here. Go to my shape, clipboard. So I have access to the color. So I'm going to go to Format, Color. Make that nice and bright. So that changed the color a bit. Let's go to Corrections. Maybe I'll make it a little brighter. And we have something like that. Again, very nice. So maybe I'll even sharpen it and get something like that. So again, beautiful, beautiful abstract patterns. And again, we can rotate this, we can crop this, etc., etc. Now some of these that have a heavy pattern, you can add a little bit of that cement artistic effect to give it like a 3D effect. So let's say I take this one and I copy it and I'm going to apply the cement. Now I don't like the way the cement looks like this. This is the default. It looks too much like it came off a filter. So I want it to be a little more natural. So what I'm going to do is take the slider bar and I either drag it all the way to the left or I drag it all the way to the right. Now right now it's fairly dark. You can't see what's going on. So I'm going to go to my corrections and I'm going to make it a lot lighter. And you can see a little bit of the 3D effect. So it looks pretty good. So if you take it all the way to the other end, like that, it kind of looks like peeling paint. So it gives you a nice 3D effect. And then we can go to corrections if we want and sharpen it up a bit. I kind of like the 3D effects, so that looks pretty good. And it will look pretty good in here too. It'll look pretty good in the text. Now it'll work with this one too. So if we copy that and we do the same thing, we apply the cement to it, you get that. Now what you want to do again is drag it one way or the other. So you can see what that looks like. Again, looks like kind of loose peeling paint. And if you take it to the other side, you get the same kind of effect. So if you want to apply a bit of a 3D effect, cement is a good one to do, as long as you grab the slider bar all the way to the left or the right. Now it doesn't work great for everything, but anything that has a heavy pattern, it works pretty good. Okay, let me get rid of that and that. Okay, now let's try something different here. I'm going to just take this one. Actually, it doesn't matter which one I take, but I'll just take that one. And I'm going to apply this one here called Pencil Grayscale. And it gives me a pattern like that. So it's a very loose pattern. And again, I can grab the slider bar, make it more loose, or make it tighter. Pencil Grayscale is definitely one of those effects that scales to the size of the object. So right now I've got these big loose marks here, and that's only because PowerPoint is seeing all these as one big picture. So remember what I showed you. Certain effects scale to the size of the object, and this is one of them. So the effect here is very big and loose because it sees all of this as one picture. And I'm going to show you what it normally does. So I'm going to take this smaller one, and I'm going to apply the grayscale to that. And you see it's a very tight pattern, very tight. Even if I drag the slider bar all the way over, it's a very tight pattern. It's not loose like this. So if you want a bigger pattern, you're going to have to duplicate your object multiple times, copy paste it as a picture, and then apply it. So that's really what's happening here. Normally you'd get this, but because PowerPoint is seeing this as a big picture, you get a much looser pencil stroke, and I like that better. Okay, so now we're going to take that. We're going to go Format, Color, we'll apply color to it. We get something like that. And we're going to go to Corrections, maybe make it a little bit lighter, and you get something like that. Now sometimes after you apply your corrections, you can go back to your color and you might find some slightly modified colors there. So if I go to this one here, I get a little bit of pink and a little bit of purple. So I like that one better. So I'm going to take that And maybe I might go back to my corrections and make it maybe just a little bit lighter. That's a very loose stroke. And if you're looking for a casual fill, that's a very nice casual fill. Looks like you took maybe a felt pen and just randomly started drawing on a piece of paper. So if you want something casual and loose, that looks pretty good. These are a little too heavy, but this one looks pretty good. And I think I might add a little sharpness to that, and we get something like that. So let's see what that looks like in the text. So we're going to copy, paste as picture, and we're going to crop. So I'm taking this one here, going to my text shape, click in there, and we have something like that. So there you have something that's very loose. So if you don't want something so tight, that looks pretty good. It looks very random. Looks like you just took a pen and just randomly, well, marking up a piece of paper. So that's pretty nice, and that's pretty casual. Okay, let's do our last one. So let's grab this one right here. I'm going to grab that, put it over here. I don't have to do the copy paste this picture because after a certain time, PowerPoint forgets that, and you can just drag them. You can see that it's no longer seeing this as an object that's got an artistic effect. So you can just watch for that. For our last effect, we'll do marker. So let's go here, let's do marker, and we get this pattern. Okay, now marker again is scale dependent. So if I take this, for example, and apply the marker to it, the marker pattern is very small because the picture is small. Now the marker pattern is very big here because PowerPoint is seeing all these as a very big picture. So again, the marker pattern is probably not very useful when it's this small. So if you need a bigger pattern, you're going to have to repeat your picture like I've shown you, copy and paste it as a picture, and then apply your pattern. So the pattern will be bigger. The marker is pretty good if you have a slightly larger pattern like this. And again, we can modify the colors. We can make it lighter and darker. So let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to copy and paste that as a picture. And I'm going to crop. Let's see, I'll take this last one here. So I'll crop it all to that. And copy that. Click here. And paste. And you got a really nice pattern there. Pretty nice. And again, you can tile it if you like. Let's put that one in the text here. Let's go to text. And there. And again, you can crop this, rotate it. So let me right click. Let me crop that. Let's say, take it down to here. See what that looks like. We're going to copy. And we get a nice pattern like that. Maybe I'll make it just a little bit lighter. Something like that. Let's try that again. So we're going to copy that. And you get a nice beautiful pattern like that. We can again rotate. Maybe I'll sharpen that first. And then I'll copy that. Let's put in the text. And we get something like that. So pretty nice pattern. Okay, so I think that's enough of the single color. The next is to do all these. So we're going to do these 4 all together. So I'm going to copy and paste them as a picture and apply the similar effects that you see here. Now will make a difference because of course we have a different pattern in these. Okay, so let me get rid of all this. And let's do the next part. Okay, so let's do our second part here. And to save time, again, we're going to be copying all of these, pasting them as one image, applying our effects to them simultaneously. Now, they should actually be done separately to get a better effect, but they're going to kind of all behave the same. The only exception is the pattern lines. The pattern lines really need to be treated differently than all the rest. Now, you're not going to notice too much change in them with what we're doing here, but we are creating a separate video on how to work with the pattern lines to create abstract patterns. So if you want to check that one out, it'll give you a better idea how to work with them. Okay, so I'm going to select them. I'm going to copy and paste as picture, and we're going to set that up. Now remember, these are vectors, so they have to be copied and pasted as a picture. One of the effects we never really talked about is film grain. Film grain doesn't really do much with most of the artistic effects, but it has a great influence on 2 in particular. It has a great influence on marker and has a great influence on Mosaic Bubbles. Other than that, it really doesn't do much with any of the other ones. So we're going to show you that one. Okay, so I'm going to take that one. I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm going to put film grain on it. And I'm going to take it to the maximum. take the grain size all the way over to the maximum. Okay, now what I'm going to do is show you the difference with and without film grain. So I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to do it again. So on this one, I'm going to put marker. And on this one, I'm going to put Mosaic Bubbles. And I'll do that to the maximum pressure, so we get something like that. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate this one. So I click on that, copy, paste as picture. Now this one's got film grain, you can see that here. So I obviously have to copy and paste it again, or I can just duplicate this one. Because this one's a picture, I can just duplicate it. So now I'm going to do the same thing on here. So I'm going to make this one marker and this one Mosaic Bubbles. So I'm going to click on that, and we'll make that marker. And you can compare that to that. And we'll take this one, and we'll make that Mosaic Bubbles. And we'll take it all the way over. So again, you can compare that to this. Here, we'll put them next to each other. So there's Mosaic Bubbles, and there's Mosaic Bubbles over grain. So you can see that this is far more interesting. This one, we have a big combination of big, small bubbles. Almost looks like balloons falling down or something. Here we have a nice piling up of the bubbles on the main part of the picture. Film grain doesn't really work that well with other artistic effects, but it's really, really good with marker and Mosaic Bubbles. I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to just duplicate it, and I'm going to crop it just so you can see what it looks like. So crop it there. We're going to copy that, and let's put it in one of the shapes here. And you get something like that. So it's kind of interesting. So you can see it's a lot different than this one. It's not like an even mass of bubbles. It really has quite a variety in them. So film grain works well with marker and Mosaic Bubbles. Doesn't do that much with the other ones. Okay, so let me get rid of this one. We don't need that anymore. We'll put this one up here. We'll take this one, put it up here. And we'll get rid of this one. Now in our previous example, we were taking a solid color object and we're applying a pattern on it so that the artistic effects could work with the pattern. Here, we have the reverse problem. We already have a pattern on the objects. Now, to turn them into an abstract pattern, we need to kind of obliterate as much as possible the pattern on the object. So if you look over here, you can see that we've got marker and we have Mosaic Bubbles. But in all cases, you can still see the pattern through it. So the artistic effects really were designed to work with photographs, with the idea that you still want the underlying image to show through. You just want to put a nice special effect on it. Now in our case here, that's the reverse. We want as much as possible to obliterate this so not too much of it shows through so that we can turn it into an abstract pattern. We don't want things to look like, in this case, trucks or whatever. We just want to use them as a basis for a pattern. So I'm going to show you the difference when you obliterate something and apply marker and Mosaic Bubbles to it, and what you have over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to put a nice line drawing on it, and I'm going to drag the pencil size all the way over so we get that. That looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. And I might go to color, make it a little brighter. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to duplicate that again. I'm going to copy, paste, and I want it to be as a picture. And this one we don't want. I'm going to get rid of it. So I need the picture version. So I'm going to duplicate that. So these are pictures. They don't have the special effects on them. They're just pictures now. Okay, so let's look at the difference. I'm going to click on this one, and I'm going to put marker on it. I'm going to click on this one. I'll put Mosaic Bubbles on it. And I'll drag that over. So there's a clear difference between these two and these two. So again, to create our abstract patterns, as much as possible, we have to obliterate the image that's there to give us something like this, not something like this. So if you take a look at the Mosaic Bubbles here, it's following the nice diagonal lines. And again, it's a mixed up pattern, very similar to this. So you got bigger ones and smaller ones, but they're following a nice pattern here. Here, they're just an even mass right across, not that interesting. Okay, so you can make a comparison. So here's your film grain with marker and Mosaic Bubbles, and here's with the line drawing. So you can see similar but different. Okay, so let me just take this one. Let me put this one over here. And let me get rid of that one. And I'm going to get rid of these two. And let's continue. Okay, let's take this one. And we're going to put our line drawing on that. We need to obliterate the pattern. So let's go here. Let's drag the pencil size all the way over so we get the diagonal lines. And I'm going to leave the transparency high so the background image, like in this case, shows through. Now I'm going to add some color to it. And remember to add your color and some brightness and contrast. That really changes the pattern. So I'm going to go to color and I'm going to go here, brighten it up, and maybe go to corrections, maybe make it a little darker, something like that. That's going to be basis for another effect. So let's copy, paste as a picture. And let's put that over here. As in the previous examples, the first thing we're going to go to, glow edges. So we get something like that. Okay, looks pretty nice. And we can drag this one way, drag it the other way, whatever you like. I think I like that. And again, I'm going to go to format. I'm going to go to color, make it a little brighter maybe. That's one pattern, again, very similar to the other patterns we made. Okay, so you probably know what we're going to do with this. You've already seen it before, so we're going to copy, paste it as a picture, and put a nice paintbrush on that. We could use sponge too, but we'll put a paintbrush on it. And of course, you can drag this to make it a little looser. Up to you. So you've seen that one before. Beautiful pattern. Okay, now I'm going to show you something different. I'm going to take this one, I'm going to copy it, paste it as a picture. I'm going to show you an artistic effect you probably have never used. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to use one called Crosshatch Etching. Now, I'm not sure where Microsoft comes up with these names, but it certainly doesn't look like an etching to me, but it is an interesting pattern. So I'm going to click on this. Probably the reason you never used it is because you don't see anything. And that's because for some reason we have a high transparency of 75%, so we don't even know what the pattern is. But if you take the transparency all the way over and turn it off, you get this, you get these lines. Now if you take the pressure, drag it all the way to the right, you get big lines. Now again, remember this is a large image, so the lines are big. If you just had a small rectangle, the lines would be very, very small. So if you want big lines, you know how to do that. You got to duplicate your picture, paste it as a separate image, and then you'll get the bigger lines. Now to me, this looks like a kid's drawing. If you're trying to create abstract pattern and you're working with kids, that looks like a great kid's drawing. It looks like they're marking on a piece of paper. Now what I'm going to do is start taking the transparency up so you can see a little bit of the background. So I'm going to take the transparency and just move it up a bit. Not too much, just enough so I can see a pattern like this. So you can see what that does. We have a nice pattern. So you can see here, it doesn't work 100% with everything, but I think this one is kind of unique, and I think that one's kind of unique. So I think I'm going to take this one. So I'm going to copy, paste as a picture. And what I'm going to do with that, I'm going to alter the color a bit. And maybe I'll make it a little brighter or darker, see what looks best. And I think that looks pretty good. These two look really, really good, and they really do look like a kid marking up a piece of paper. So let me crop that out. So I'm going to take this pink one here, and I'm going to just copy that. Let's click here, and we're going to paste it in there, and we get something like that. So that to me looks like a kid marking up a piece of paper. It's pretty neat. Maybe I'll put a little sharpening on that. I like that a lot. I think if you're doing probably something with kids, like especially little kids, you're doing a little slideshow or something like that, that's perfect. It really looks like a kid marking up a piece of paper. Okay, let's take this one here. We're going to copy it, paste it as a picture. And again, we have to obliterate the pattern. So again, one way to do that is with the nice glow edges, and we get that. Not too crazy about that pattern. So I'm going to take this, smooth this all the way to the right, so we get a pattern like that. I like that a lot better. So I'm going to go to my color, add some color to it. So I'm going to go to my corrections, and let's make it a little bit lighter, something like that. Okay, now I can copy and paste that, put it in there. You know that's going to look good in the text, either the text or the text shape. It'll look really good, but that's too mechanical for me. And again, I want something a little more artistic, so it's too mechanical. So I'm going to copy, paste as a picture. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here. I'm going to use this one, paint strokes, and that's the one that makes things a little bit darker. So I'm going to click on that, and you have something like that, nice pattern. Now I'm going to just take this down a bit so it's not so dark. Take a look at this. These are okay, But look at this last one. This last one is really good pattern based on that, but it's different. And I like that a lot. This one is very abstract, and I like that one. You can clearly see it's this. You can see the stripes, the blue, green, yellow, and you can see that's actually slightly indicated in there. The underlying pattern does affect the next artistic effect that goes on top of it. So I'm going to get rid of this one. Don't want that one. That was just for the basis for this one. And I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to crop it. So we're going to use this one. And maybe modify the color a bit. Go to color. Looks a little better. Let's go to corrections. Let's see. Maybe a little lighter. That looks pretty good. Maybe I'll add a little bit of sharpening to it. Not much, just a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to copy that. Put it in our text object. And look at that. Fantastic abstract pattern. Now do that in Photoshop. And how long will that take you? So hopefully you can see that there's a lot of creativity in PowerPoint if you push it in a different direction. Obviously, when Microsoft created PowerPoint, they weren't looking in that direction. But anybody who's done artwork with different programs will always take a program like PowerPoint and move it in another direction. So hopefully this can help expand your artistic repertoire on this. Okay, let's continue. So let's get rid of that one. And let's take this one. Let's copy and paste as a new image. And we're going to apply one of my favorite artistic effects, and that's Cutout. Cutout tends to posterize things. In other words, it eliminates colors and flattens everything. So PowerPoint calls it Cutout because it's like cutting out pieces of paper and putting them into an arrangement. It gives you a more artistic effect. So I like this a lot better than I like the glowing edges. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to take the shades all the way over so we get something like that. And then I'm going to just brighten it a bit. So I like this. This looks more drawn and not as mechanical as this. But I'm going to do something else to this. This one is pretty close to that. So I want to make a slight difference to this. Now, if you remember part 1, we talked about the plastic wrap artistic effect. We haven't done that yet, and we're going to do it here. What I'm going to do with this is apply the plastic wrap. Now, plastic wrap can be used to break up a pattern. So if you have a strong pattern like this, plastic wrap can be used to break that up. So I'm going to click, copy and paste that as a new image. Copy, paste, new image. And I'm going to get rid of this one. Put that down here. And we're going to apply the plastic wrap. This is kind of reverse of some of those other artistic effects that scale to the size of the image. Now, in this case, the bigger the image, the smaller the effect is. So it's not as effective on big images as it is in small ones. So I'm going to apply a plastic effect, and you see that. It doesn't seem to do much. So I'm going to take the smoothness all the way over, so it's a little bit bigger. Okay, so we get something like that. So you can see it's breaking up the pattern. Now, obviously, I don't like this gray pattern that the plastic wrap gives you, which is not a problem. We just go to our color, and we just click on color, and it gets incorporated in there. So plastic wrap can be used to break up a pattern like this. So if you look here, it looks more like it's swirling around. But what I really want to do with the plastic wrap is give it that three-dimensional effect. And plastic wrap can do that if the image is smaller. So what I'm going to do is copy that, paste it, it's a new image. And I think what I'm going to do is maybe take this one right here. So I'm going to crop. So now I have to copy and paste this as a new image because PowerPoint remembers this as being a wide image. So the plastic wrap works better on small images. So now I've got to copy that and paste as a new image. Get rid of that one. Don't need it. And now I'm going to apply the plastic wrap. And it makes a much bigger pattern on a smaller object, just like that. So now it gives it a three-dimensional effect to it. So I'm going to go to my colors and blend that plastic wrap into the picture. So I'm going to just click here and it blends in better. It's like it's raised paint or something. So I'm going to go to my corrections and I'm going to make it a little bit sharper. So if we compare these two together, you see there's a difference. So again, you can use plastic wrap to break up a pattern like you see here, or you can use it to make something three-dimensional. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to copy that, click on my text shape, click here, clipboard, and there we get something like that. So it adds a little dimension to this abstract pattern. And again, because it's in a text shape, I can go to my color, I can lighten it, darken it, or add more sharpness to it. So if you want to break up your patterns, plastic wrap will do that quite well. Now just to show you, I'll take this one and just copy it and paste it as a new image. And what I'll do is apply plastic wrap to that. Now again, it's a large image, so the plastic wrap won't be as detailed, but it'll look pretty good. So we do that, we drag this all the way over, and you can see it gives you swirls. And if I go to color, we'll incorporate that in there. And if you make a comparison, you'll see that we have more of a swirling pattern here. So again, you can use plastic wrap to break up a pattern, especially if it's a linear pattern like this. It doesn't work as well with, let's say, the marker patterns, but it works very good on linear patterns. Let's do one more. Now I've just noticed that I've got two of these almost identical. Now that won't do. So we have to do something about that. So I'm going to click on this one. And I'm looking at my panel, and under Artistic Effects, I notice there's no effect there. So what that tells me is that PowerPoint has forgotten this effect. So now it's just an image. So if I look there, or if I go to Format, Artistic Effects, and I see the first one selected, that tells me PowerPoint has forgotten the effect on that. So now this is just an image. So now I can modify it directly. I'll put this one, Paint Strokes, which is a nice dark paint stroke. I like that one. I'm going to just take this down a bit. It does a little bit of a smearing of colors, and I like that. It's really nice. I really don't like this kind of a pattern, but I think this works pretty good. So Dark Strokes did a pretty good job on that. And I'm going to go to Color. Maybe I'll go to Corrections. Maybe make it darker, lighter, something like that. Now that looks pretty good. Now compare that to that. This looks nicer. Compare that to that. This looks nicer. Same thing here, and definitely there. So what I'm going to do is copy that, paste it as a new image. And let's see, I think I'll use this last one as an example. So I'm going to crop. So we're going to copy that. Maybe we'll paste into the text this time. Let's go to Text Options. And we're going to paste it in there. And you get something like that. So it looks pretty good. Maybe we should add a little bit of sharpening to this. Okay, and I'm going to copy that again. Click in here. Go to my text. And paste it again. Okay, so a nice abstract pattern. So again, just a little variation on a theme. To fill in this last little slot here, let me go back to the beginning and show you why you have to obliterate the image if you want to get a good abstract pattern. So what I'm going to do is copy these again, paste them as a picture, and we'll just drop it here at the bottom. We've been using glow edges a lot, so let's apply glow edges to this. And when you do, this is what you get. So you can still see the pattern here, and it's not that interesting. So what I'm going to do is add a little color to this. See if I can improve it. And you can still see the previous pattern. It's not that interesting. So what I'm going to do is rescue this. So I'm going to copy that, paste it as a new image, get rid of that one, and put this one here. I'm going to put a watercolor sponge in there. So let's go here. Let's choose watercolor sponge. We get something like that. Let's go to color and let's go to corrections. Let's make it a little bit lighter. And I think I like that. And look at the pattern we get here. So again, you have to obliterate that image if you want to make a good abstract pattern. Watercolor sponge is made up of little edges, and that makes it a prime candidate to add some cement artistic effects. And that will give it a bit of a 3D quality to it. So I'm going to copy that. Paste it as an image. I'll put this one here, and I'm going to go here, go to cement, and you get that. Now that's too obvious a pattern, so we take it one way to the other. So I'm going to take it all the way to the left, and we get something like that. Now I'm going to go to my color, maybe add a little color, and definitely lighten it up a bit, and we get something like that. So we get edges here and a bit of a 3D quality. Let's put this one back down here, and let's put these into the text. Okay, I'm going to just duplicate this, and I'm going to crop. I'm going to take this one here. I'm going to copy that. I'll put it in this text shape. And we get that. Nice 3D quality. Let me get rid of that one. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to crop that. I'm going to take this one right here. Let me copy that, and let's put in the actual text. So it looks pretty good. So again, you can add 3D qualities to your abstract patterns if you use the right pattern. I think that's about it. So we use solid color patterns, gradients, texture patterns, and pictures, and showed you different ways to do this. Now again, I had to do them all in one shot just to keep the time down. And like I said, I could probably do a video on just each one of these. Now, if you do these individually, you'll have much better control and you get a lot more variation in your results. So thank you for watching. And in our next video, we're going to do the pattern lines. So we're going to take those and create abstract patterns with them. They'll create some great ones too. So we hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like, and we hope to catch you on the next video.